Polytomic is a no-code app that lets you automatically sync data from your internal databases, data warehouses, spreadsheets, or some other apps into your business systems like Salesforce, Pardot, and Marketo, HubSpot, and others. Let's illustrate this with a demo. Now, the first thing to set up in Polytomic are the data models coming from your source data systems that you'd like to make available for syncing. Let's say I'd like to surface some user data sitting in a Postgres read replica database. I'll click this button, Add Model, choose the source connection, in which case I'll pick this database here. Now you get to call the model whatever you want. I will call this model user details. Now we get to browse the tables on the database. I'm interested in the users table, so I'll click that. And we get back all the columns or fields, if you will, straight from the database's table. Every field has an example value from your own data, so you can see what that looks like. You can see the data type, and we generate a human-friendly label that you can overwrite if you want. Now, the leftmost column is the actionable one here. This is a yes/no column that ultimately decides what fields are made available as part of your data model for feature syncs. Now, in this case, I'd like to include all these fields. So I'll do so, hit save. And with a few clicks, we've built a data model, surfaced some fields from Postgres read replica. Note that every field is a first-class object. You can relabel it, you can document it, and you can see an example value of that field from your own data. Now, let's add some more data. Let's say there's some billing data sitting in a separate read replica database. Let's hit Add Model, choose the database in question, and let's call this model billing info. Now, rather than pointing and clicking at a table selector, we can also specify a model through a totally custom SQL query. Note, this is native SQL per your data store. In this case, it's native Postgres, but this could very easily be native Snowflake, Redshift, Microsoft Azure, MySQL, or whatever your data store is. Now, you can write any SQL query here you want. It could be as large as you want, as complex as you want. I'll keep things very basic. We'll just do a select star from billing. Hit continue. Now our query produces a list of fields, and it's the exact same workflow. We will select the fields we want. In this case, I'll pick them all. Note, we have an optional join step that I will fill in here because we do have an organization ID from this data model, and the one we're in the process of creating also has an organization ID. And so I can join the two models together using this common key. So let me do so. We'll map organization ID from this model to that in users, and we'll hit save. Right, so we've now surfaced a brand new data model. Let's very quickly add one more from a Google Sheet. In this case, we have a bunch of mailing addresses. Let's call this model order addresses. From here, I'd like to surface the city, state, and country. And we can join, again, optionally, to any of our models, which I will do so because our user model has an email field. We have an email column in this spreadsheet. I will join the two together. We'll map email from the spreadsheet to that in the model, and we'll hit save. Right, for the sake of this demo, let's say this is enough, right? We've surfaced 3 different data models from 3 different sources, 2 Postgres replica databases and a spreadsheet. Now, let's set up a sync into Salesforce and see what that looks like. We'll click Create Sync, walk through this wizard, pick our destination system to be Salesforce, and you get access to all the objects in Salesforce, including custom ones, but let's set up a sync into Contact. And we'll choose our sync type. We get 3 to choose from: update or create, aka upsert, or only update existing records in Salesforce, or only create records that don't exist in Salesforce. We'll do both. Now, the first thing to set with any sync is an identity mapping. And on the left-hand side, you've got the Polytomic models we've just set up. And on the right-hand side, you can see all the fields from the Salesforce contact object we'd like to sync data to. All the identity mapping is a pair of fields, one on each side, that helps our system figure out when we're dealing with the same object on both sides. For Salesforce contacts, because they're people, Email address is a very suitable identity field, although you may have your own custom user ID, and that would be fine too. But for the sake of this demo, I'll use email. And now you can pick whatever you want from your data models and sync to the Salesforce contact. We can pick first name, maps to first name in Salesforce. Our Salesforce requires last name, so let's map that. From the Google Sheet, we can grab, let's see, city, map that to mailing city on the contact. From our totally separate billing query, we can grab the subscription plan and map that to a plan field on the contact. You can click preview, where we'll run a live query, show you some sample objects to be synced over. If anything already occurs in Salesforce, you get a link into it. Otherwise, we can dismiss this. You can even set some filters on a per sync basis. And so, for example, we can tell the sync to only run if last name is not null. But I won't include any filters here. We'll hit continue, set our sync schedule. This could be manual, where someone has to click a button, or continuous, which is near real time. Anytime your data changes, we'll move the updates over. Or hourly, daily, weekly, or even a totally custom schedule of your own choice. Like, run 3 times a day every 3 hours, for example. I'll set things to hourly at 30 minutes on the hour. And we'll hit continue. Here you can verify your sync summary. If everything looks good here, you can go ahead and save your sync. So we've just few minutes created a sync into Salesforce contacts. We can run a test sync, which would sync 5 random records, or just enable the sync. And this sync will run next at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, as that's where I'm located. We can override this by just clicking sync now. So I'll just do that. So we have a running sync, and one can access a sync history containing an audit log of all past syncs. And indeed, this sync's currently running. Otherwise, in fact, the sync actually just finished, 100 records synced. One can even set error notification subscriptions. You can enter in any email addresses of your teammates who should receive error notifications should they occur. But that's really it. In a few minutes, we've created a sync into Salesforce. It's all incremental, it's automatic. 3 different sources into Salesforce. And that's really it. One sets up one's data models. You can invite anyone you want into Polytomic, who can then sync anything to their home systems without ever having to bother your engineering or data teams.